After Donald Trump gave what I thought was his worst press conference of the term yesterday, I honestly didn't think the bar could drop any lower until I woke up and saw him speaking at the United Nations. And of course, he used that platform the way he often does, by embarrassing himself on the world stage. What we saw was a speech where he struggled to stay on script, melted down in front of an international audience, and after being laughed at, chose to lash out at world leaders. It was an absolute disaster, and we're going to break it all down. But before we dive into the specific moments, like the part where he was laughed at and then turned to insults, let me quickly ask, if you're enjoying this channel, please give this video a like, and if you haven't already, hit that subscribe button. It really goes a long way in supporting the work we do here. Now, let's start with the part of the speech where he began complaining about not being able to build the UN headquarters.
Many years ago, a very successful real estate developer in New York, known as Donald J. Trump, I bid on the renovation and rebuilding of this very United Nations complex. I remember it so well. I said at the time that I would do it for $500 million, rebuilding everything. It would be beautiful. I used to talk about, I'm going to give you marble floors. They're going to give you terrazzo. I'm going to give you the best of everything. You're going to have mahogany walls. They're going to give you plastic. But they decided to go in another direction, which was much more expensive at the time, and which actually produced a far inferior product. And I realized that they did not know what they were doing when it came to construction, and that their building concepts were so wrong, and the product that they were proposing to build was so bad and so costly. It was going to cost them a fortune. And I said, and wait till you see the overruns. Well, I turned out to be right. They had massive cost overruns and spent between $2 and $4 billion on the building and did not even get the marble floors that I promised them. You walk on terrazzo. Do you notice that? As far as I'm concerned, frankly, looking at the building and getting stuck on the escalator, they still haven't finished the job. They still haven't finished. That was years ago.
Are we really supposed to take this seriously? I should stop even asking that, because of course the answer is no. Donald Trump isn't serious about governing, but he is serious about his personal complaints. Standing before world leaders instead of addressing global issues, he chose to focus on a building project he didn't get to do years ago. This is the reality. We have a former president so consumed by himself that he turns moments on the world stage into personal grievances. And what makes it worse is how it reflects on all of us. Around the globe, people see this behavior, and it's nothing short of embarrassing. Instead of leadership, what they witnessed was whining dressed up as toughness. A performance that was more about ego than substance. And to top it off, he even tried to sell it as some kind of strongman act, when in reality, it was nothing but empty bluster.
I'm feeling a lot safer. Crime, we're getting crime down. And by the way, speaking of crime, Washington, D.C. was the crime capital of America. Now it's after 12 days, it's a totally safe city. Everyone's going out to dinner. They're going out to restaurants. Your wife can walk down the middle of the street with or without you. Nothing's going to happen. My people have done a fantastic job. And yes, I called in the National Guard. And the National Guard took care of business, and they weren't politically correct, but they took care of business. We got 1,700 career criminals out, brought them back to where they came from, the countries where they came from, or put them in jails. Washington, D.C. is now a totally safe city again, and I welcome you to come. In fact, we'll have dinner together at a local restaurant, and we'll be able to walk. We don't have to go by an armor-plated vehicle. We'll walk right over there from the White House.
Embarrassment really is the only word that comes to mind. And, unfortunately, this speech only went downhill from there. So buckle up. What we saw was Donald Trump trying to project toughness in front of world leaders who simply do not respect him. Because time and time again, he's shown weakness in the face of authoritarian figures. Think about it. You can't welcome Vladimir Putin with open arms, roll out the red carpet, treat him like an ally, and then turn around and rant about the National Guard in Washington, D.C., expecting anyone to see you as strong. The reality is, Trump has consistently capitulated to dictators. His tariffs have failed, and world leaders don't take his negotiations seriously because they see through the weakness. Instead of real leadership, we got self-pity, grievances, and bizarre detours into failed business ventures. At one point, he was even rambling about the National Guard protecting monuments, as if that somehow made him look tough. It was nonsense. And then things got worse. The teleprompter went out, and as we've seen before, when he has to speak without a script, it gets even more embarrassing. Let's take a closer look at that moment.
And I don't mind making the speech without a teleprompter, because the teleprompter is not working. I feel very happy to be up here with you nevertheless, and that way you speak more from the heart. I can only say that whoever's operating this teleprompter is in big trouble.
I honestly can't say for sure whether world leaders were laughing at Donald Trump because they saw what was coming next, or because of how awkward the delivery already was, but what we do know is this. Once he had to rely on his notes, the rest of the speech went downhill fast. Reading directly from text has never been his strong suit, and it showed. Still, the one thing he didn't seem to struggle with was going off script to lash out at other countries. Those ad-libbed remarks weren't in the prepared speech. They were pure Trump, and they only made things worse. Let's listen to what he had to say.
According to the Council of Europe in 2024, almost 50% of inmates in German prisons were foreign nationals or migrants. In Austria, the number was 53% of the people in prisons were from places that weren't from where they are now. In Greece, the number was 54%, and in Switzerland, beautiful Switzerland, 72% of the people in prisons are from outside of Switzerland. When your prisons are filled with so-called asylum seekers who repaid kindness, and that's what they did, they repaid kindness with crime. It's time to end the failed experiment of open borders. You have to end it now. See, I can tell you. I'm really good at this stuff. Your countries are going to hell.
Your countries are going to hell. That was Donald Trump's message to world leaders. Seriously, how does anyone think that brings people together? Why does he speak this way? Why does he always turn moments on the world stage into reckless outbursts? It feels less like watching a president and more like watching a child misbehave in front of an audience. And unfortunately, it didn't stop there. Trump went on to rant about the mayor of London and launch into divisive rhetoric instead of focusing on diplomacy. It was another moment that left the world shaking its head.
And I have to say, I look at London where you have a terrible mayor, terrible mayor. And it's been so changed. Now they want to go to Sharia law, but you're in a different country. You can't do that. Both the immigration and their suicidal energy ideas will be the death of Western Europe if something is not done immediately. This cannot be sustained.
What a terrible mayor, Trump said, before throwing out more inflammatory remarks. This is exactly how he presents himself on the international stage: reckless, divisive, and unserious. And it's important to understand the deeper context here. One major reason Donald Trump has targeted the mayor of London so aggressively, beyond the offensive language he often uses, is because the mayor has been outspoken in support of Palestinian rights. Recently, countries like Canada and France have taken steps toward recognizing a Palestinian state, something Trump has shown no willingness to do. His approach has consistently ignored the human cost of conflict, including the loss of innocent lives. That's why his hostility toward leaders who speak up on these issues is so telling. Instead of addressing humanitarian crises or real global challenges, Trump fixates on petty grievances and distractions. While others are calling for peace and recognition, his focus is elsewhere, on things like attacking renewable energy and even complaining about windmills. And that's exactly where he turned next.
Energy is another area where the United States is now thriving like never before. We're getting rid of the falsely named renewables. By the way, they're a joke. They don't work. They're too expensive. They're not strong enough to fire up the plants that you need to make your country great. The wind doesn't blow. Those big windmills are so pathetic and so bad, so expensive to operate. Then they have to be rebuilt all the time, and they start to rust and rot. Most expensive energy ever conceived, and it's actually energy. You're supposed to make money with energy, not lose money. You lose money, the governments have to subsidize. You can't put them out without massive subsidies.
I can't even imagine what it must have felt like to sit in that room as a world leader, someone focused on diplomacy and what's best for their country, only to hear the President of the United States rant about not liking windmills. That's what the international community was subjected to. Yes, the last election was about affordability, and Trump has tried to frame immigration as a deciding factor too. But looking ahead to 2028, I think the real message people want to hear is about reclaiming our lives from politics. No matter who is in office, whether Democrat or Republican, we should all stay engaged. But the difference is this: under Trump, politics feels like chaos every single day. It's exhausting. You've probably seen that protest sign that says, "If VP Harris were president, we'd be at brunch." It's funny, but I don't think disengagement should be the goal. Even with a Democratic president, we should still be active and paying attention. But we shouldn't feel like we're constantly being poked, prodded, and overwhelmed by dysfunction the way we are with Trump. What people want is stability. What people want is to get their lives back, not just from one man, but from this entire cult-like movement that thrives on chaos. That's a message I hope we see someone run on in 2028. Let's get our lives back. Especially when lives are being lost right now, in conflicts like the war in Ukraine, which Trump has only used as another opportunity to complain rather than lead.
This war would never have started if I were president. This was a war that should have never happened. It shows you what leadership is, what bad leadership can do to a country. Look what happened to the United States. And look where we are right now in just a short period of time. The only question now is how many more lives will be needlessly lost on both sides. China and India are the primary funders of the ongoing war by continuing to purchase Russian oil. But inexcusably, even NATO countries have not cut off much Russian energy and Russian energy products, which, as you know, I found out about 2 weeks ago, and I wasn't happy. Think of it. They're funding the war against themselves. Who the hell ever heard of that one? In the event that Russia is not ready to make a deal to end the war, then the United States is fully prepared to impose a very strong round of powerful tariffs, which would stop the bloodshed, I believe, very quickly. But for those tariffs to be effective, European nations, all of you are gathered here right now, would have to join us in adopting the exact same measures. I mean, you're much closer to the city. We have an ocean in between. You're right there. And Europe has to step it up. They can't be doing what they're doing. They're buying oil and gas from Russia while they're fighting Russia. It's embarrassing to them. And it was very embarrassing to them when I found out about it, I can tell you that.
He just never stops talking, does he? It's constant. One complaint after another, one falsehood after the next. Honestly, I just want him to go away. And the question is, How many more months of this do we have to endure? After sitting through that press conference yesterday and then this latest speech, I don't even know what more to say other than I'm tired. Tired of the endless complaints. Tired of the lies.
Likewise, in a period of just 7 months, I have ended 7 unendable wars. They said they were unendable. You're never going to get them solved. Some were going for 31 years, 2 of them, 31, think of it, 31 years. One was 36 years. One was 28 years. I ended 7 wars.
At this point, you almost want to say, Donald, here's the deal. We'll hand you a medal if you just step aside. That's how exhausting this has become. Day after day, rant after rant. It wears people down. I'm tired. I know a lot of you are tired. But here's the thing. We're not going to stop calling it out. We're not going to stop speaking the truth. Some people might not like the rants, but I hope you do. Because this is how we keep holding the administration accountable. If you want to support this work, make sure to hit the subscribe button, give this video a like, and if you've stayed with us until the end, drop a blue heart in the comments. And until next time, I will see you soon.